When Sarah Jenkins received a letter from the HOA, her peaceful life was turned upside down. The small shed she built for her kids was now under threat of demolition, but soon she discovered a shocking loophole in the rules that could turn everything around. What happened next shocked even the most seasoned lawyers, but let's start from the beginning. It was a quiet Saturday morning when Sarah Jenkins, a 38-year-old single mother living in a peaceful suburban neighborhood in Florida, received a letter that would change everything. The envelope was unassuming, but inside, the words hit her like a punch to the gut. The Homeowners Association, HOA, had ordered her to demolish the shed she had carefully built in her backyard. A small, humble structure, but one that meant the world to her family. Sarah had constructed the shed with her own hands, following every single guideline provided by the HOA. It wasn't just a shed. It was a sanctuary for her kids. A safe place to play, store gardening tools, and escape from the confines of their small house. It was a piece of stability in an otherwise chaotic world. The HOA's letter claimed that the shed violated their rules, but the reasons were vague, and the more Sarah read, the more she realized something was off. The letter was filled with legal jargon, threats of fines, and talk of potential legal action. It was clear that the HOA was serious. They weren't asking her to fix the shed or make minor adjustments. They were demanding its destruction, and the consequences for non-compliance were severe. Sarah felt the weight of it all. The shed wasn't just a structure. It was a lifeline for her children. It gave them space to breathe, to play, and to store the tools they needed to care for their garden. For Sarah, it was a symbol of her hard work, her determination to give her kids something more than what she had. To have it ripped away by a faceless bureaucracy felt like a cruel joke. As she sat there, staring at the letter, the initial shock slowly turned to anger. She had followed every rule, every guideline. She had done everything right. And now, because of some arbitrary decision, her family's peace was being threatened. The frustration was overwhelming, but underneath it all, there was something else. Resolve. Sarah wasn't going to let this go without a fight. She couldn't. Sarah's frustration grew with each passing day as she delved deeper into the HOA's claims. The more she examined the bylaws they had cited, the more she realized something unsettling. The terms were vague, full of loopholes, and did not apply to the shed she had built. The language was deliberately convoluted, leaving room for interpretation, and Sarah quickly understood that the HOA was playing fast and loose with the rules. What they had framed as a violation seemed more like an arbitrary decision than a well-founded objection. As she continued to investigate, a sense of betrayal settled over her. This wasn't just about a shed anymore. The more she uncovered, the more she saw that the HOA's authority was being used to control, to bully. Their rules weren't just unfair, they were selectively enforced. Neighbors had faced similar baseless accusations in the past, some of them too intimidated to challenge the authority of the HOA, accepting fines or making unnecessary compromises just to avoid conflict. Sarah knew she wasn't alone in her frustration, but she was determined not to be just another victim. However, reality quickly set in. The HOA wasn't some powerless group. They were organized, well-funded, and had a team of lawyers on their side. It felt like she was up against an immovable force. The odds seemed insurmountable. Each time she thought she had found a way forward, a new obstacle emerged. The legal jargon was overwhelming, and she was just one person trying to take on a system designed to crush any resistance. Sarah had never felt so small. The emotional toll was exhausting. Nights blurred into one another as she pored over pages of legal documents, searching for a loophole, a flaw in the system. Her eyes grew tired, but she couldn't stop. She spoke to neighbors who had gone through similar battles. Some had given up. Others had won small victories. But nothing had come easy. There were moments when the weight of it all seemed unbearable. The constant stress gnawed at her, but with every setback, something inside her grew stronger. She wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. After weeks of relentless digging, Sarah stumbled upon a crucial piece of information that changed everything. Buried deep in the HOA's agreement was a section that clearly stated they were prohibited from imposing fines without a majority vote from the residents. This was the bombshell she had been searching for. The HOA had bypassed this rule entirely in her case, issuing the fine without any formal vote or approval from the community. It was a massive oversight, and in that moment, Sarah realized she had a powerful weapon at her disposal. With this new knowledge, her strategy became clear. Not only would she fight the HOA's actions, but she would also make them pay for their mistake. Armed with the legal loophole, Sarah immediately sought out a lawyer who could help her turn this discovery into a concrete action plan. She filed a formal complaint, demanding compensation for the emotional distress they had caused her, the countless sleepless nights, and the constant anxiety she had endured throughout the ordeal. The HOA's unchecked power had to be challenged, and she wasn't going to back down. The HOA's initial response was predictable, dismissive and condescending. They brushed off her complaint as if it were just another minor inconvenience they could easily ignore. But Sarah wasn't deterred. Her resolve had only grown stronger. She had uncovered a glaring flaw in their legal structure, and she wasn't going to let them escape the consequences. When the case finally reached court, Sarah's preparation and persistence paid off. The judge saw through the HOA's overreach and sided with Sarah, agreeing that their actions were a clear violation of the agreement. The decision was a blow to the HOA's authority. Not only were they forced to reimburse Sarah for her legal fees, but they were also hit with a hefty fine for their wrongful actions. The victory was sweeter than Sarah had imagined. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle. It was about standing up to a system that had tried to crush her. She had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. After the trial, Sarah felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. The HOA, now in disarray, had to revise its rules, and she became a local hero among the residents. Neighbors who had once been too fearful to challenge the HOA's authority now looked to Sarah as a symbol of standing up for what's right. The emotional relief was overwhelming. She could now sit in her shed with her kids, knowing that they were safe from the oppressive rules that had once threatened their home. But the victory didn't just end with the shed, it had restored a sense of fairness in their community. As Sarah sat outside with her children, enjoying the peaceful afternoon, she couldn't help but smile. The unfair system had tried to break her, but in the end, it had only made her stronger.